You never expect to get that kind of phone call. It was late afternoon and I was at my desk finishing up a few emails before heading home. The office was quiet. Most people had already left. My phone buzzed. At first I thought it was my wife, Sarah, maybe asking me to pick up something on the way home. But the number was unknown. I hesitated, then answered. The voice on the other end was a woman. I didn't recognize it. "You don't know me, but I know your wife." That alone sent a chill up my spine. I gripped the phone tighter, a sudden pit forming in my stomach. "She's at the Garden Inn Motel, room 214. She's not alone." My mind went blank for a second. "Who is this?" I finally managed. "That doesn't matter, but you need to hurry. She's with one of your neighbors. If you want to catch them, you don't have much time." Then she hung up. I sat there staring at my phone, my pulse hammering in my ears. My wife, my neighbors, a motel. It didn't make sense. I wanted to believe it was a prank, some sick joke. But something in the woman's voice, it wasn't playful, it was cold, certain. I stood up so fast my chair tipped over. My hands were shaking as I grabbed my keys and rushed out of the office. The drive to the motel was a blur. My thoughts raced faster than the car. Sarah and I had been married for 6 years. We had our ups and downs like any couple, but nothing that made me suspect this. But then little things started clicking into place. The late nights, the sudden interest in going for walks around the neighborhood, the way she'd been distant lately, her phone always just out of my reach. And then there was the way she started dressing differently, like she was trying harder, but not for me. I gritted my teeth. The motel was just off the highway, a cheap place with flickering neon lights and a parking lot full of old sedans and pickup trucks. I pulled in fast, scanning the cars. I recognized one immediately. Todd's truck. Todd lived 2 houses down from us. A friendly guy on the surface, always waving, offering to help with yard work. But now that I thought about it, Sarah always had a smile for him, always laughed at his dumb jokes. My stomach turned. I jumped out of my car and stormed toward room 214. My fists were clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms. But just as I reached the door, sirens. Red and blue lights flashed against the motel's dingy walls. I turned, heart pounding, as a swarm of cops pulled into the parking lot. They moved fast, shouting orders. Some ran toward the motel entrance, others toward the back. I froze. This wasn't just about me catching my wife cheating. Something else was going on. Then I saw the gurney and the blood. A woman was being wheeled out of the motel room. At first I didn't recognize her. Her face was battered, swollen, barely human. But then I saw her clothes, the floral blouse, Sarah's blouse. My breath caught in my throat, and then standing just a few feet away, her hands covered in blood, her eyes wild, was Lisa, Todd's wife, our neighbor. And the look on her face was something I'd never seen before. She saw me, and she smiled. Not a friendly smile, a cold, knowing smile, like she had done this for me. I couldn't move. My body was frozen, my mind struggling to process what I was seeing. My wife, bloody, unrecognizable, being loaded into an ambulance. My neighbor Lisa, standing there, her hands stained red, looking at me like she had just done me a favor. The cops rushed past me, shouting at each other, but I barely heard them. My chest was tight, like someone had wrapped a steel band around my ribs. How the fuck did we get here? Ara and I met 12 years ago at a friend's party. I was fresh out of college, working my off trying to build a life for myself. I wasn't rich, I wasn't the best-looking guy in the room, but I had something a lot of people didn't: drive. I'd grown up in a small town, raised by a single mom who worked 2 jobs just to keep food on the table. I knew what struggle looked like, and I sure as hell wasn't going to let that be my life. Sarah was different. She came from money, not filthy rich, but comfortable. Her dad owned a couple of car dealerships, and she grew up never worrying about rent, bills, or whether she could afford to eat out. But what got me was how down-to-earth she seemed at first. She wasn't snobby, she wasn't fake. She laughed at my stupid jokes, listened when I talked about my dreams. For the first time in my life, I thought I'd found someone who saw me. We got married 5 years later, bought a house in the suburbs. It wasn't a mansion, but it was ours. We had a daughter, Emily, who was now 4, and a son, Lucas, who had just turned 2. They were my world. Everything I did, every late shift, every overtime, every sacrifice, was for them. And Sarah? She was supposed to be my partner in all of it. But looking at her now, her broken body being lifted into that ambulance, I realized how little I actually knew about the woman I had given my life to. The cops had blocked off the motel room, pushing back a small crowd of onlookers. One officer approached me, his face hard. "You the husband?" I barely managed a nod. "We're gonna need you to come with us." An hour later, I was sitting in a police station, still trying to wrap my head around everything. Lisa had snapped. That much was clear. She had caught them in that motel room together, and she hadn't just confronted them. She had gone berserk. The cops wouldn't tell me exactly what she did, but the words severe trauma and multiple wounds were thrown around. Todd was dead. Sarah was barely alive. And me, I was just the fing idiot, who had been working overtime while my wife was sneaking off with our neighbor. I clenched my fists, the injustice of it all settling into my bones like ice. After what felt like an eternity, I was finally allowed to leave. The drive home was silent, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. I had spent years breaking my back for this family, for her, and she threw it all away for Todd. Todd, that useless, lazy piece of CI who had never worked a day of overtime in his life, who always had some excuse for why he was struggling, even though his wife Lisa was the one who actually held their household together. The worst part? I bet I looked like a fucking clown to everyone. A man working extra hours, coming home exhausted, just for his wife to crawl into bed with the neighbor as soon as he left. I gritted my teeth so hard my jaw ached. I had fought my whole damn life to be a good man, to be the husband and father my own dad never was. And for what? For this. I pulled into the driveway, but I didn't go inside right away. I just sat there, staring at the house I had worked so hard to make a home. Sarah had lied to my face every single day, kissed me, told me she loved me, let me hold her, slept next to me at night, and the whole time she was fucking someone else. I slammed my fist against the steering wheel. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. Sarah survived. I don't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing. When I got the call from the hospital saying she had stabilized, I felt nothing, no relief, no anger, just an empty, hollow space where my heart used to be. She had lost a lot of blood, suffered multiple fractures, and would need surgery to repair some of the damage Lisa had done. But she would live. Todd wouldn't. The news hit our neighborhood like a bomb. The friendly, laid-back guy next door, brutally beaten to death by his own wife in a cheap motel room with my wife. And suddenly everyone had something to say. The first person to reach out was Lisa's sister. I barely knew her, but she called me late that night. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice shaking. "I tried to tell Lisa. I tried to warn her." "Warn her about what?" I asked, gripping the phone tighter. She hesitated. Then, in a quiet voice, she said, "Sarah was never in love with you." My stomach twisted. What the hell does that mean? She told Lisa once, years ago, she said she settled, that you were a safe option, reliable, a good dad. The words burned as she kept talking. But she always wanted more excitement. She liked Todd because he was reckless, dangerous. She said you worked too much, that you were boring. Boring. I clenched my jaw so hard I thought my teeth would crack. "I don't think she meant for it to get this far," she continued. "Lisa started noticing things months ago, the way Sarah acted around Todd, the little looks. She started keeping tabs, and when she found out, she lost it. But I heard her swallow. But I think Sarah wanted to be caught." That was it. That was the moment something inside me snapped. Sarah didn't just cheat on me. She didn't just betray me. She fucking used me. I had given her a home, a life, a family, and she wanted more excitement. She wanted me to find out. She wanted me to be humiliated. She wanted to break me. She thought I'd just take it. She had no fucking idea who she was dealing with. Nuclear revenge. 2 days later, I went to the hospital. Sarah looked like hell, her face swollen, stitches running along her cheek. When she saw me, her expression twisted in guilt. "Baby," I held up a hand, stopping her, and then I smiled. That threw her off. She blinked in confusion. "You know," I said, taking a seat next to her bed, "I was really torn up about this. I kept wondering what I did wrong, how I could have been better." She looked down, avoiding my eyes. "But then I realized something," I continued, keeping my voice calm. "You never deserved me." Her head snapped up. "James!" "You wanted excitement?" I leaned forward. "Let me give you some." I pulled out my phone and showed her the divorce papers, already filed, already finalized. Her face paled. "I sold the house," I said casually. "Well, our house, not yours anymore. Hope you don't mind. I got a great offer. The new owners move in next month." She opened her mouth, but no words came out. "Oh, and one more thing," I added, standing up. "Your credit cards? Canceled. Your car? Not in your name. Your health insurance?" I shrugged. "Well, guess who was paying for that?" Tears welled in her eyes. "Wait. You took everything I built and threw it away for Todd." I leaned in close, my voice low and cold. "Now you have nothing. No husband, no home, no future." She reached for me, her fingers trembling. "Please." I stepped back, looking at her one last time, and then I walked out the door. The aftermath: I never saw Sarah again after that day. I got full custody of our kids. She had no job, no place to live, and after Lisa's trial, her name was mud in our town. She tried reaching out a few times, but I ignored every call, every message. I was done. Todd was gone. Lisa was in prison. And Sarah? She finally got her excitement. I hope it was worth it. I thought it was over. I thought I had burned every bridge, cut every tie, and buried my past where it belonged. But Sarah wasn't done, not even close. The letter that changed everything. It started with a letter, not a phone call, not an email, an actual handwritten letter shoved into my mailbox. No return address, just my name scrawled in shaky, familiar handwriting. I stood on my porch, heart pounding, staring at the envelope like it was a live grenade. I should have thrown it away. I should have burned it. But my hands had a mind of their own. I tore it open, and what I read inside made my blood run cold. "James, I know you hate me. I don't blame you. I deserve every ounce of pain you've given me. But there's something you don't know, something I never told you. I was never supposed to be with Todd. He wasn't the one I wanted. He was just convenient. The truth is, the man I cheated on you with first wasn't Todd. It was someone else, someone closer, someone who betrayed you just as much as I did. And now he's trying to take everything from you. I'm so sorry. Please, James, be careful. Sarah." The real affair. I felt like the ground had just been ripped out from under me. Todd wasn't the first? My vision blurred as I read the letter again, my pulse hammering in my ears. Who? Who the fuck was she talking about? I thought about every man who had been in our lives, my friends, my co-workers, and then, like a bullet to the chest, it hit me. Jake, my best friend, my business partner. The one man who had been by my side through everything, the man I had trusted with my career, my money, my future, the man who had been pushing for months to buy me out of our company, saying I needed a fresh start. I grabbed my phone, my hands shaking, and pulled up our last conversation. I had told him about the divorce. I had told him about selling the house. And what had he said? "Damn, man, if you need anything, money, a place to stay, just let me know." I thought he was being a good friend, but now I realized what he was really saying. He thought I was weak. He thought he had won. I clenched my jaw so hard I thought my teeth would crack. That motherfucker. A dangerous game. I spent the next 48 hours digging, and what I found made me sick. Jake and Sarah had been sleeping together for nearly a year. before Todd, before Lisa snapped. While I was busting my A working overtime trying to give my family a better life, they were laughing behind my back. And worse, Jake had been planning to screw me over financially too. I went through old emails, business reports, everything. Jake had been moving money, shifting investments, setting things up so that if I ever left the company, he would walk away with millions while I got scraps. And I had been blind to it all. I had lost my wife. I had lost my trust. I was not about to lose my fucking legacy. The payback. The next morning, I walked into our office like nothing was wrong. Jake grinned when he saw me, slapping me on the back. "Man, you look like hell. You holding up?" I smiled. "Oh, I'm doing better than ever." For the next week, I played along, acted like I was broken, let him think he had won. Then the night before I was supposed to sign the paperwork selling him my half of the company, I made my move. I called an emergency board meeting, and I laid everything out. The fraud, the backdoor deals, the stolen money. Jake's face went from cocky to ashen in a matter of seconds, and when the company lawyers got involved, things unraveled fast. By the end of the week, Jake was out, fired, publicly disgraced, and thanks to the non-compete clause I had snuck into our contracts years ago, he couldn't work in our industry for another 5 years. I didn't just take the company back. I took everything. I hesitated before reaching for it. There was no return address, just a single word scrawled across the top in black ink. Goodbye. I swallowed hard and ripped it open. Inside was a USB drive, nothing else. I stood there, rain dripping from my fingers, my heartbeat thundering in my ears, and then I made the mistake of plugging it in. The video. The screen flickered to life, a dimly lit room, a man tied to a chair, beaten, bloody. At first I didn't recognize him, then he lifted his head. Jake. His face was barely recognizable, swollen, bruised, one eye completely shut. His lip trembled as he stared into the camera, his breathing ragged. A voice spoke from behind the lens, cold, unfamiliar. "You should have paid your debts, Jake." Jake didn't respond. He just laughed, a sick, broken chuckle. Then he looked directly at me, as if he knew I'd be watching, and he said 3 words that will haunt me forever. "He's coming next." The screen cut to black, the escape. I didn't waste time. Within an hour, I had packed up everything important. I didn't know who he was, but I wasn't going to wait around to find out. By sunrise, I was gone. The kids and I hit the road, moving again, disappearing into a new city under new names. No forwarding address, no digital footprint. And Jake, I never found out what happened to him. I never wanted to. Because some things, some ghosts are best left buried, but late at night, when the world is quiet, I still wonder if someone is out there, watching, waiting, and I know this will never truly be over.